The Hidden Agendas of Public Education, Unveiling the Forces Shaping Our Schools. The public education system is often viewed as a cornerstone of democratic society, tasked with equipping young minds with the knowledge and skills needed to thrive. However, beneath its stated mission lies a complex web of hidden agendas that shape what students learn, how they think, and who ultimately benefits. These agendas, driven by political, economic, and ideological forces, often prioritize control, compliance, and profit over genuine education. This article explores the undercurrents within the public education system, focusing on standardized testing, curriculum manipulation, teacher training, and the influence of external stakeholders, while grounding the discussion in verifiable facts and systemic patterns. The myth of neutral education. Public education is frequently presented as a neutral institution, dedicated to fostering critical thinking and equal opportunity. Yet, historical and contemporary evidence suggests otherwise. Education systems have long been shaped by those in power to serve specific societal goals. In the United States, for example, the modern public education system took shape in the early 20th century during the Industrial Revolution, when figures like John D. Rockefeller and Andrew Carnegie funded initiatives to standardize schooling. The General Education Board, established by Rockefeller in 1902, explicitly aimed to create a workforce suited for industrial labor, emphasizing obedience and rote learning over creativity or independent thought. A 1913 report from the board stated, "We shall not try to make these people or any of their children into philosophers or men of learning or of science." This legacy persists. Today's system, while more sophisticated, often prioritizes producing workers who fit into existing economic structures rather than encouraging intellectual freedom. The National Center for Education Statistics, NCES, reports that in 2020, 79% of public school students were funneled into career-oriented tracks like STEM or vocational training, often at the expense of arts, humanities, or critical thinking curricula. This focus aligns with corporate demands for skilled labor, but raises questions about whose interests are being served. Standardized testing, a tool for control. Standardized testing is one of the most visible mechanisms through which hidden agendas manifest. Tests like the SAT, ACT, and state-mandated assessments are billed as objective measures of student ability, but their design and implementation reveal deeper motives. The No Child Left Behind Act, NCLB, of 2001 and its successor, the Every Student Succeeds Act, ESSA, of 2015, tied federal funding to test performance, creating a high-stakes environment where schools prioritize test preparation over holistic education. The testing industry is a multi-billion-dollar enterprise. According to a 2016 report by the Brookings Institution, the U.S. spends over $1.7 billion annually on standardized testing, with companies like Pearson and Educational Testing Service, ETS, reaping significant profits. These corporations not only design tests but also sell preparation materials, tutoring services, and data analytics, creating a self-perpetuating cycle of dependency. A 2013 study by the National Education Association found that students in grades 3 to 8 spend an average of 20 to 25 hours per year on test preparation, crowding out subjects like history, music, and physical education. Moreover, standardized tests are not neutral. Critics, including scholars like Diane Ravitch, argue they perpetuate inequality. Wealthier districts can afford better test prep resources, while low-income schools, often serving minority populations, face penalties for underperformance, including funding cuts or closure. The NCES reports that in 2019, Black and Hispanic students scored 20 to 30 points lower on average than white students on standardized tests like the NAEP, National Assessment of Educational Progress. This gap reflects socioeconomic disparities more than innate ability, yet the system penalizes schools and students rather than addressing root causes like poverty or access to resources. Tests also shape pedagogy. Teachers, under pressure to meet benchmarks, often teach to the test, focusing on rote memorization rather than critical thinking. A 2014 survey by the National Education Association revealed that 72% of teachers felt their curriculum was narrowed due to testing mandates. This approach stifles creativity and conditions students to prioritize compliance over inquiry, aligning with an agenda that values predictability in the workforce. Curriculum manipulation, shaping minds, not freeing them. The content of public school curricula is another battleground for hidden agendas. While curricula are ostensibly designed by educators, they are heavily influenced by political and corporate interests. State education boards, often composed of politically appointed officials, decide what textbooks are adopted and what topics are emphasized. In Texas, for instance, the State Board of Education has faced criticism for revising history curricula to downplay slavery's role in the Civil War or to emphasize conservative values. A 2010 decision by the board required textbooks to include references to American exceptionalism and minimize discussions of systemic racism, as reported by the New York Times. Textbook publishers, another powerful player, tailor content to appease large markets like Texas and California, which collectively influence national standards due to their purchasing power. A 2017 analysis by the National Center for Science Education found that science textbooks in some states diluted discussions of climate change or evolution to avoid backlash from politically motivated groups. This manipulation ensures that students receive a sanitized version of history, science, and social studies, often aligned with the ideological leanings of those in power. Furthermore, the rise of Common Core standards, adopted by 41 states as of 2015, reflects a push for uniformity that critics argue serves corporate interests. Developed with input from groups like the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, which invested over $200 million in the initiative, Common Core emphasizes skills like data analysis and technical writing over literature or creative expression. A 2016 study by the American Educational Research Association found that Common Core-aligned curricula reduced emphasis on narrative writing by 20% in favor of argumentative and technical formats, aligning with corporate demands for analytical workers. The inclusion of controversial topics like critical race theory, CRT, or gender identity in curricula has also sparked debate. While proponents argue these topics foster inclusivity, opponents claim they promote ideological conformity. In 2021, at least 35 states introduced legislation or took executive action to restrict CRT or similar concepts, according to Education Week. These battles reveal how curricula are less about education and more about shaping societal narratives, with both sides vying for control over young minds. Teacher training and desk killing. Teachers are the backbone of education, yet their training and autonomy are increasingly undermined by systemic agendas. Teacher preparation programs, often standardized through accreditation bodies like the Council for the Accreditation of Educator Preparation, CAPE, emphasize compliance with state mandates over pedagogical innovation. A 2019 report by the National Council on Teacher Quality found that 60% of teacher training programs prioritized classroom management and test-aligned instruction over fostering critical thinking or subject mastery. Once in the classroom, teachers face rigid guidelines. Scripted curricula mandated by districts to ensure consistency limit their ability to tailor lessons to students' needs. A 2018 study by the Fordham Institute found that 65% of teachers reported feeling restricted by district-mandated pacing guides, which dictate what to teach and when. This de-killing reduces teachers to technicians, executing pre-designed plans rather than engaging as intellectual leaders. Low pay and poor working conditions further erode teacher autonomy. The Economic Policy Institute reported in 2020 that public school teachers earn 20% less on average than other professionals with comparable education, adjusted for inflation. This pay gap, combined with high-stakes accountability measures, pushes talented educators out of the profession. The NCES noted a teacher turnover rate of 16% annually in 2019, with many citing lack of autonomy and excessive bureaucratic oversight as reasons for leaving. The result is a system that discourages independent, creative educators in favor of those willing to conform. Corporate and political influence. External stakeholders wield significant influence over public education, often prioritizing profit or ideology over student welfare. Corporate partnerships, such as those with tech giants like Google and Microsoft, have integrated proprietary software and hardware into classrooms. A 2020 report by the Center for Digital Education estimated that U.S. schools spent $13 billion annually on edtech products, many of which collect student data for commercial purposes. Google's Chromebooks, used in over 50% of U.S. schools according to a 2019 EdTech magazine survey, track user activity, raising privacy concerns. Yet schools, strapped for funds, often accept these free or subsidized tools without scrutinizing their long-term implications. Philanthropic organizations also shape education policy. The Gates Foundation, alongside groups like the Walton Family Foundation, has funded initiatives promoting charter schools, standardized testing, and data-driven accountability. A 2018 analysis by the Washington Post found that Gates-funded policies influenced federal education priorities, including the adoption of Common Core and teacher evaluation systems tied to test scores. While framed as altruistic, these interventions often align with neoliberal goals of privatization and market-driven education. Politically, education is a lightning rod. Both progressive and conservative factions push agendas through school boards, legislation, and lobbying. For example, the American Federation of Teachers and the National Education Association, two of the largest teachers' unions, donated over $20 million to political campaigns in 2020, predominantly supporting Democratic candidates, per OpenSecrets.org. Meanwhile, conservative groups like the Heritage Foundation advocate for school choice and voucher programs, which critics argue divert public funds to private institutions. These competing influences turn schools into ideological battlegrounds, with students caught in the crossfire. The social engineering agenda. At its core, public education often serves as a tool for social engineering, shaping students to fit societal roles rather than empowering them to challenge the status quo. This is evident in the emphasis on soft skills like teamwork and time management, which are prioritized in frameworks like the 21st Century Skills Initiative, endorsed by the U.S. Department of Education. While these skills sound benign, they align closely with corporate demands for compliant employees. A 2017 survey by the National Association of Colleges and Employers found that employers valued teamwork and problem-solving over creativity or independent thinking. Even mental health initiatives, while well-intentioned, can serve as tools for control. Social-emotional learning (SEL) programs, now implemented in 80% of U.S. schools per a 2020 CASEL report, aim to teach emotional regulation and empathy. However, critics like education researcher John Gatto argue that SEL can be used to instill conformity, discouraging dissent or strong individuality. The line between supporting mental health and enforcing behavioral norms is thin, and the lack of transparency in how these programs are designed raises concerns about their true purpose. The path forward: reclaiming education. Exposing these hidden agendas is only the first step. Reclaiming public education requires systemic change. First, reducing reliance on standardized testing would free up time and resources for richer curricula. Finland, often lauded for its education system, administers minimal standardized tests and prioritizes teacher autonomy, resulting in top global rankings on PISA assessments. Second, decentralizing curriculum decisions could empower local communities to tailor education to their needs, rather than bowing to corporate or political pressures. Third, investing in teacher training and pay, modeled on systems like Singapore's, where teachers are among the highest paid professionals, would attract and retain talent, fostering innovation. Parents and communities also have a role. Grassroots movements, like those opposing excessive testing in New York in 2015, where 20% of students opted out of state exams, show the power of collective action. Transparency in funding and decision-making, including public oversight of corporate partnerships, is critical to dismantling profit-driven agendas. Conclusion: the public education system is not a monolith, but a contested space where competing interests vie for control. From standardized testing to curriculum design, teacher training to corporate influence, hidden agendas shape what students learn and who they become. These agendas, rooted in economic, political, and ideological motives, often prioritize compliance and profit over genuine intellectual growth. By recognizing these forces and advocating for change, we can move toward an education system that truly empowers students, fostering critical thinkers who challenge the world rather than conform to it.